why can't you just plug it in? The computer tells you what's wrong with the car. Yeah, sure it does. Alright guys, what we got going on here, we've received our replacement engine and I am in the process of stripping it down to take care of all the normal things that need fixed. We're gonna carbon clean the valves, new valve cover gaskets, just check everything over really good to make sure this engine isn't gonna have any problems after it gets shoved into the A6. So we're gonna obviously replace the oil filter stand gaskets. The breather plate is going to come off. New lines there. The metal gasket that's under that. All this fluid is just from the fuel that leaked out when I pulled the fuel rails off of the injectors. We're gonna get these valves cleaned up. There's a good view. We're gonna carbon clean those with walnut shell media. This engine is supposed to have around 100,000 miles on it, so this carbon buildup is perfectly normal for an engine with that many miles. I've already pulled the valve covers off. Everything looks pretty good. No scoring on the cam lobes. Did have valve cover gasket leak. There's oil down in the spark plug tubes, which that happens. So overall, looks like we got a good engine. We used Lifetime Audi. They're a salvage yard in the Carolinas, and yeah, just like the name says, they have a lifetime warranty on their parts they sell. You obviously have to do your due diligence and take care of your maintenance, but should there be any, in their words, any catastrophic failure, they will replace it. Here's a up-close look of how the AC compressor is driven. It's got a drive shaft coming off the rear timing chain, and then your power steering pump goes in there. This is your water pump drive here, thermostat. So we're gonna get this thing cleaned up and put back together. The guides look good on the back. Nothing's broke. So we should be in good shape. Here's a look at the fuel, high pressure fuel system that came off. Fuel pumps are driven off the intake camshafts by that plunger. Puts pressure in the lines, goes to the injectors. And here's the original engine. And we're gonna take the wiring harness off of this engine and put it onto the new engine, just because we know this harness is good. We've had this engine running. It didn't have any electrical issues, so we're going to transfer all of that onto the new engine to avoid any unknown issues. Looks like we got a CV axle that needs replaced. So all this is going to go up in there. So yeah, we're gonna keep at it. Hope you guys are enjoying the progress and the process. Hey guys, wanted to take a minute and have a captive audience. Don't get to express this a whole lot, but wanted to talk about something that we as shop owners and technicians deal with. We don't deal with it a whole lot because our clientele base is usually pretty highly educated and they understand what goes into diagnosis and being a technician. But sometimes you get those customers that just, well, why can't you just plug it in? The computer tells you what's wrong with the car. Yeah, sure it does. Or the customers that don't feel like they should have to pay for diagnosis because you can just plug the computer in and it tells you what's wrong. Well, that computer can cost upwards of 20 grand, and that's for just one. You got shops like us that have more than one. The technician's training, that wasn't free. The time, obviously, technicians get paid by their time. That's not free. So, yeah, diagnosis is a very important process that needs compensated for. You ever not want to pay that doctor's visit that takes 10 minutes but costs $100, $200? Same thing. You're paying for knowledge, you're paying for equipment, you're paying for overhead, paying for time. But anyways, that all aside, let's say you have a check engine light, and this applies to any vehicle, basically 2006 and newer, and it's a timing issue, but your car still seems to run okay. Maybe it's sluggish on acceleration or doesn't have the power it should, and we plug it in and it says camshaft over retarded. Yeah, that's all it gives us, camshaft over retarded. The computer didn't tell us what's wrong, it told us a symptom of what's going on. So now we have to dig in and see what's causing that. And most cars, if it's a 6 or 8 cylinder, has 4 camshafts. So hopefully the computer's reading correctly which camshaft is over retarded or too advanced, either way. So now that we have this Audi V10 apart, I can kind of show you what goes into what could set that fault, or any fault in general. Why you can't just plug the computer in and it tells you what's wrong. So for instance, you as a customer, you think you push on the throttle, the engine goes, that's it. Camshafts turn, crankshaft turns, all done. Well, there's a lot of turns going into that one turn of a camshaft rotation. If you look here, this engine has a solenoid here and here. This is a oil flow control valve. It's a variable valve timing adjustment solenoid. And believe it or not, it controls oil flow inside the cylinder head to these adjusters. So you have a solenoid that receives a signal from a computer to tell it where to move, which then controls oil flow, which then mechanically allows this adjuster to move independently from the chain. So you have your camshaft here, you have your timing chain sprocket here, and the whole time this is going on, this chain's rotating, all in time with the crankshaft. But as you step on the throttle, this solenoid can control oil that moves this adjuster, which can change the timing of your camshaft in relation to the timing chain. Does that all make sense? So as a technician, those are things we have to go in and test and figure out what's wrong or what's causing your check engine light. Where'd it go? Here it is. So on this side, we took the upper cam plate off because we have to clean it. We're replacing these seals. This is where that valve timing adjustment solenoid goes. It goes down into the cylinder head. If you look at it, it has these openings here, and this plunger that moves back and forth depending on the input from the computer, which then it's sending a signal based on throttle input from you as a driver. So each one of these openings, you can see the reliefs here, oil is flowing through there, and this valve controls flow from one side to the other, which then comes up through this bore in the cylinder head and goes inside the camshaft through this groove out to this adjuster. So based on the oil pressure that this adjuster gets, it determines how the camshaft moves. So the camshaft can move separate from the sprocket and the timing chain. It's pretty awesome what goes into it. So that's just a real quick, and well, I guess I shouldn't end yet. So as a technician, we have to test this solenoid to make sure it's operating correctly, which typically requires removing it, activating it manually, and seeing if it moves. Sometimes it's failed electronically. Sometimes customers don't change their oil when they should, and they get all dirty and gunked up, and the valve can't move because of oil sludge. And then we can get sludge inside of these. And typically to get these off on this engine, the motor has to come out of the car. So that's just a little quick rundown of the processes that go into an engine. Every time you step on the throttle, all this is operating. So as a technician and business owner, all we can ask the customer to do is please understand what it takes to go in and scan your check engine light.